Hey guys, so I thought I would do a video on another car that's in my garage, and here it is. It is a 2012 Rolls-Royce Ghost. It's finished in black, and we certainly do have some modifications, as pretty much all my cars have. I'll do a little spin around and then we can talk about it in detail. But what you can see is that the car has 22-inch Boston wheels, added the Vorsteiner side skirts, as well as the Vorsteiner front lip. And then it's lowered as well, so it's got a stance. The car itself has a black on black interior, and if you step aside, you see that it has suicide doors. It's got the umbrella, and you'll notice in the back it's got the TV, the fold-out table, and it's got theater seating, which is an option, and that gives you luxury seat controls individually for the left and right passengers. All right, so we'll go for a spin. Get settled, and we'll have a little talk about this. So, how did I end up with a Rolls-Royce Ghost? Well, before I had this car, I had only two cars that I could use for family hauling. And that was a 2013 Cadillac Escalade and a 2020 Model Y Tesla. And those were the two cars that we could take the family out in. All my other cars have only two seats, so for a family of four, my choices were kind of limited. And the Escalade is a car that I pretty much use for work, and because I take my dogs to work, you can imagine the car has dog hair everywhere. So it wasn't really a nice car to take out when you wanted to go to a nice dinner or some kind of formal function. I do try to keep that as clean as I can, as I do all my cars, but sometimes just cleaning after the hair of dogs is almost an impossible task. So, being that, of course, I have interest in cars, I'm a gearhead, I wanted to pick up a sedan that I could use to take my family out in nicer events. Nice dinners, formal functions, things of that nature. And for me, the choices really wasn't that much. You had a Mercedes S-Class, a BMW 7 Series, and then pretty much a Rolls-Royce. I mean, I guess I can add Bentley to the list, but Bentleys have never really piqued my interest all that much. So it wasn't something I really had, high on the list to choose from. The BMWs was easy to cross off. I don't know what BMW is doing, but their designs are getting too whack. Every generation gets wackier and wackier. In fact, the last BMW that we've owned, can't remember the year, but it was the BMW known as the Shark Nose, and we had a 750 IL, and that car had a V12 engine as well. Remember, the horsepower wasn't that big, In fact, if I remember correctly, it had somewhere around 300 horsepower. But what that experience taught me was how smooth and torquey that V12 engine was. And so V12 was another aspect of the sedan that I was adding to the list of requirements. And so that kind of narrowed it down to pretty much a Rolls-Royce Ghost or a Phantom or a Mercedes S-Class V12. Usually that's the S600 sedan. Well, again, that wasn't too hard of a choice because Mercedes is, I mean, they're kind of everywhere. It's not to say they're not good cars, but it doesn't come with it a special experience in ownership, unless you have something that's very unique. But an S600 sedan isn't something I would qualify as a super unique car. You can get probably 90% of the same experience from a regular V8 sedan. I mean, those cars are pretty much identical other than the engines when you talk about a S-Class sedan. So the Rolls-Royce Ghost was really an easy choice. And by the way, if you love cars, Rolls-Royce really is the epitome of luxury, and in the world of sedans, they have the #1 spot, I think. The Phantom really wasn't a choice because that car is just too big. It felt like you're driving around in a school bus. It's not something I can even fit in my garage, so was not really a car for me to even consider. But buying a Ghost also was one of the tougher cars to locate. What do I mean by that? Well, these cars are generally speaking very customizable, and a lot of the owners, they have very specific tastes. So you see a lot of different ranging options on these cars. So I particularly wanted one that was black on black, and it had to have the rear seating package. It had to have the TV, it had to have the dinner table, it had to have the executive seating in the back where you can individually control the left and right seats. So it was not a car that was easy to find. You would think maybe black on black would be one of the more popular color combinations. It really wasn't. And on top of which, the wood trim on most Rolls-Royces that I came across were not piano black. They were burl nut or walnut or something. It just wasn't the black on black that I was going for. So ultimately, it was this one that I found, and I think I probably had to comb through 50 plus cars before I located this one. And when it became available, I checked its history, of course, had it looked over, one owner car, just checked out. So I purchased this car, and I've used it to take the family out, and it's certainly a nice car to do so. It's a Rolls-Royce, right? So doesn't have to be said about how luxurious this car is. Everything in here is pretty much what it looks like. Leather is leather, aluminum is aluminum, wood is wood, and the materials are pretty top notch. I will say that there are a couple bits here and there that are plastic and they're chromed out to fit within this interior design, but they're not really something you touch much, so it's not something you're constantly feeling with your fingers and reminding yourself that not everything in here is metal. Some of it is plastic indeed. But again, you're not touching them and they're not in your face, so it's not something you think about much. This car rides really, really smooth. It's got a V12 twin turbo engine. I don't know what the horsepower is. I think it's like 500 some odd horsepower. And it is a big sedan, but don't let that sleep on you. This car has torque for days. When you want to merge on a freeway or overpass another car. It's effortless in here. The turbos really make a big difference. I think the turbos definitely help the weight of this car move the way that it does. So it's plenty fast. But again, this is not a car that you necessarily want to drive super fast. This is something that encourages you to drive smoother, take your time to get to your destination. It soaks up the bumps in the road. It's very quiet in here. Despite the fact that I put 22-inch wheels on here, it still rides really, 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 really nice, like you're on cloud nine. It's quiet. The stereo system works fabulous. Yeah, it's just a nice, relaxing environment to be in, especially if you have to go to some kind of event or even just to go for a drive. I mean, it is really, really nice. You can be here for easily, 3-4 hours and not have to get out. It's that nice. But ownership-wise, it's been a pleasure to own. Really, it's not a car that requires much. I think BMW became part owner of Rolls-Royce when this model was released, because a lot of the underpinnings here, in fact, are BMW. The car's infotainment system, you can tell it's piggybacked off BMW. So it's got BMW technology, and I think that certainly helped. In terms of its reliability, it's really been it's been a great car. It hasn't really had any issues. I just do the typical oil change, cabin filters, that kind of thing. This thing, though, however, certainly does drink a lot of gas. It's a heavy car. It's got twin turbo. It's a V12. It's a very thirsty car. So on a full tank, I usually get close to empty right when I hit 200 miles or so. But not a big deal. It comes with the territory of owning this car. Other than that, it's just so smooth and torquey. Now, if there was ever a car that I would think about replacing this with, it would be a Mercedes Maybach. And the only reason I would do that instead of a more current Rolls-Royce Ghost is because I think having experienced ownership of a Rolls-Royce, I would probably look for something different the next time around. And the Mercedes Maybach certainly looks interesting. It's a car that I don't think beats the Rolls-Royce from an outward appearance. I think the Maybach, again, it looks just like almost any other Mercedes until you see the side profile. Then you realize that car has been stretched an extra, 4 to 6 inches or something like that. So from an outward appearance, the Maybachs don't really stand out that much. The only other way a Maybach is really, easily recognized amongst all the S-classes is its paint scheme. Some of the S-classes get the regular paint choices, whereas the Maybachs, they get dual tone paint, or I think they have different color palettes. So it's not something that's easily recognizable from the exterior. Not that that's a big deal to me. I think what appeals to me really in the Maybach is just the amount of luxury and features that come with it. I don't think you can dispute, especially with those first class backseat experience that the Maybach offers. It's a whole different experience. Of course, me being the one who always drives when we take out the family, I wouldn't find myself back there much, but I think my family would enjoy those back seats. So if it's ever something that I may want to do someday, it's that would be possibly an option. My schedule, though, the way my life is now, doesn't really give me a lot of opportunities to use this car for those nice dinners or formal events as much. Life's been busy, so we haven't really been too much of those settings where maybe driving a Ghost out would make sense. But that's okay. I mean, eventually they come around. And even if not, you know, I do drive this to work every once in a while. It's just a nice cruiser to get there in. And for now, it's not something that I need to get rid of. So it just kind of sits in the garage, and when it gets used, it gets used. Otherwise, when the time comes, for now, the Maybach maybe. Let me know what you think. Do you guys think the Rolls-Royce is the epitome of luxury cars these days, or do you guys have a different opinion? I'd love to know. Now, the interesting thing about this Ghost, and I think it has to do a little bit with the way that I kind of have the car dressed up. It gets a lot of looks. You can see a lot of heads turn, and you know, that's cool. I like being a car enthusiast. I like looking at interesting cars. I mean, I am a customer myself, meaning, you know, if I see a nice car out there, I'll take pictures, I'll gawk at it. Yeah, it's just something cool to look at. So hopefully I created something cool, something that stands out. But in any case, it certainly does get the attention. Yeah, let me know if you guys have anything else you guys like to know about the Ghost. Leave it in the comments. I'll certainly make follow-up videos, and we can discuss them. In the meantime, we'll just go for a drive.